Hi, I'm Sabrina Clark, and welcome to Design Your Family's Legacy. The COVID shutdown showed many that they either didn't have a plan B or their plan B wasn't sufficient. So I put this series together to help families prepare for their future by creating a more secure foundation. And today we have Roslyn Lash. She's the Money Elevation Coach. She's an accredited financial counselor, a real estate broker and investor, and the author of The 7 Fruits of Budgeting. She works virtually with single women, helping them to gain clarity around their finances, reduce debt, and increase their net worth so that they can live a more abundant life. Her advice has been featured in national publications such as USA Today, Forbes, Time, Huffington Post, the Los Angeles Times, and a host of other media outlets. Hi, Roslyn. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing fine, Sabrina. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, thank you for being here. I think it's really important for everyone to make sure that their finances are in order and that they're prepared no matter what comes along, that they'll be able to weather it.
Exactly.
Okay. One thing I think has been very hard for families is working with their finances within the relationship, whether they're married or living together. How do they deal with their finances? Is their first step?
The very first step is a budget. Because if they don't know what's coming in, and during this pandemic, the amount of their income may have drastically increased. So they'll need to do a budget to know what their income is, what the expenses are, and what expenses that they can actually eliminate. Because if you're living on your full budget, then you can afford to have luxuries. But if your pay has decreased, or if you have unemployment, then you need to cut down on some luxuries. And it's not total, you don't have to cut down on everything, but there's some things you just won't be able to do. So yeah, very first thing is to look at a budget.
Okay.
And then once they do that, as I said, they will eliminate some items that they don't need. Now, of course, in today's climate, everyone needs internet. So you may be able to reduce the internet speed, but it's doubtful that you want to eliminate your internet because, the kids need it for school and you may need it for work. But now something like cable, for example, that may be something that you could work out. Maybe you could find an app to use. So that would help you eliminate a few $100s. And you just go down the list and decide, what items are wants and what items are needs. Because if you're really at a point where your money has decreased, it does come down to wants versus needs. Now, normally, it's always kind of wants versus needs. But in a situation, an economic downturn, you really have to determine, because it's okay if you want something and you don't need it and you want it and you say, hey, I want it. And you can afford it and you get it. But if you can't afford it, you just need to let it go. Yeah, that would be my very first step.
Yeah, it used to be the internet was a luxury, and now with school and working from home, it's a necessity. So you may want to look around for other plans that may be less expensive.
Exactly. But you have to have it. Like you said, for school, you have to have it. But there are some items that you don't have to have. And in subscriptions, for example, is one that you don't necessarily have to have. Yes, you could go, you could have, magazine subscriptions. But if you're low on money and long on a month, then you could eliminate, some of your subscriptions. Instead of listening to certain radios, you just have to listen to your regular over-the-air radio. And then you have to eliminate some of your magazine subscriptions, some of your television subscriptions. So those are considered luxuries. But internet, I agree with you, Sabrina. Internet at this point, it has become a necessity.
But there's plenty, I'm sure folks who were trapped at home figured out how much money they were saving off of not going and getting the coffee or eating lunch out every day and things like that. There are always places you can trim it a little bit.
There's always places. And people that, like you said, that are working from home can call their insurance company and see if there's a discount because they are working from home. So the chances of them getting an accident, going to and from work is non-existent now because they're going from their bedroom to, their living room. So that's another thing that they do have to consider. And I agree with you when you say about, not going by the store or the coffee shop or wherever it is that they used to go. We just we now tend to eat more meals at home, and that saves us money.
Well, what do you do if you're trying to work out a budget and your partner doesn't necessarily agree with it? How do you work through those issues?
Well, of course, first you'd have to find out why the partner does not agree. Because oftentimes it's fear that they just don't want to see it on paper, or it could be that they feel as if one partner makes more than the other, then they may feel as if, well, you expect for me to contribute significantly more to the household because you don't have the funds. Well, and I've heard this several times. They can work that out according to percentages. So, for example, that one individual, so we'll say the female of the house, take her income and divide it by the total income of the house. That gives a percentage. That's the percentage that she would pay towards the bill. And then the same for the male. And it ends up being 100%. So one person, the person that makes less would actually pay less. The person that makes more would pay more, but it's equitable. So they're paying according to their abilities to pay. So I think if they do it that way, that may relieve some of the tension that would be felt, from I don't want to do a budget. And just let them know that you may streamline the budget, but the goal is to have some funds left over so we can prepare, so we can save, so you can pay yourself first, have some monies left over. And I think that added security would relieve some of the apprehension that the other partner feels.
Now,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, you said to pay themselves first. What exactly does that mean?
It means when you get your check, if you value your credit, then you always want to pay your creditors. And that's admirable. That's how you maintain a good credit score, is by paying your credit on time. But you need to value yourself just as much or more than you value anyone else. So save first before you pay anybody. Tuck some away first. Have a deduction come out of your check, transferred into your savings account. So before that money hits your checking, or before you have access to the money, look at your budget and decide how much you're going to save for you. And that's what it means. Pay yourself first. And it doesn't have to be a lot, because sometimes you can't afford to pay a lot. But you need to save and pay yourself. Save for yourself before you pay anybody else.
Yeah, if you don't start next year, you'll be in the same place with zero there. So anything you can contribute goes a long way. It does add up faster than you think.
Anything you can contribute. Well, a long time ago, when I was in college, we got a stipend of $7.50. And that was $7.50 a week. So, it's not much at all. But I decided to save the 50 cents. And it added up. I mean, eventually it got me enough money that, I could buy a tank of gas. So yes, I absolutely agree with you, Sabrina. It adds up. And if you do it before you've paid any bills, then the money is there because you've already done it. But if you wait, for some reason, it just seems like you never have enough.
Is
So
that
yeah.
experience in college what led you to become a financial coach?
Actually, no. Now that experience was profound, and it did encourage me to always save. But what encouraged me to become a financial coach, like we're speaking of saving, having a rainy day fund and all. Well, I was working, and I had the job, and I'd been on the job for a total of 9 years, and I lost my job. And initially, it was not financially devastating so much, but it had a great emotional toll on me because I am a single mother. And so then I had to do basically what I'm telling them to do. Look at my budget and see exactly what my assets were. And I realized that I didn't have a lot of debt, and I eliminated, some items that I did have, some luxuries, as we mentioned. And I realized, well, wait a minute, I think I can sustain myself because I've always lived within my means, and that's the key. You have to live within your means. I didn't have a lot saved, although I was saving, but I didn't have a lot of debt. And then after doing a living without a job, and my income was cut by 50%. Oh, no, 80%. My income was cut by 80%. That's a big decrease because I did have some supplemental income, but not a lot. Once I was able to sustain myself, I thought, I can help other people do this. So that's when I became accredited. And voila, rest is history.
That's fantastic. Well, what do you do if you have a partner that's, because, as a single mom, it's difficult, but when you're in a marriage, it's difficult as well because now you have this other person whose opinions don't really matter. What do you do if you have that person that doesn't handle money well and can't understand that you can present them the budget and they're okay with it, but then they just go out and spend willy-nilly? How do you rein that back in?
It's best that they have a cash allowance because when you're doing a budget, and even if you're not doing a budget, if you are swiping, then you swipe and you don't even really feel it. In fact, you don't necessarily know how much you spend until you get the bill the next month. But if you have cash, you feel that. You go into the store, you give them $20 and they give you $3.17 back. It hurts. You see the difference in your wallet. So if you have that person that's, first of all, if they're swiping all the time, then do what you can to, not have them swipe. And if it means having separate accounts, then do that because you may have to have an account for the household. And that way, they would not, or you can actually get an account where there is no debit card attached. Go the old-fashioned way if you have to, and write checks from that account. So all of the bills from that account, the household bills would be paid. And then if you had our account, that would be the household account, his account, and your account. Therefore, he would be more responsible and would have a better understanding of where his money's going if it's all his. Because otherwise, it could become an enabling situation where you're actually enabling him because when he runs low, you put some more money in their account, or you juggle the bills around. And I say him, it could be a her, because you have in any relationship, you can have a spender and you can have a saver, and it can be either gender. But just make sure that that person, if at all possible, can spend with cash.
Yeah, I practiced family law for over a decade, and finances is one of the biggest reasons people get divorced, and it's not always the female. There's usually one person that's organized with money and one person that has never seemed to gain the knowledge on how to handle money, and it's a constant, pressure on the marriage.
Yes, it's a constant pressure because the person that is more of the saver or more of the organizer, they're the one that's all stressed out because the bills are coming and they're concerned. The other person may not be. But if they had their own account, I think they would feel it more. And if there's not someone there bailing them out all the time. Because when you bail somebody out, just like with your children, they don't really realize it until it's theirs.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's why, like, taking their luxury away, whether it's their computer or their skateboard or whatever, that hurts so bad, and it works whenever you're trying to discipline them. It actually is something physically. So there's something tangible there. So just saying, I'm not going to, feel about this. Kids don't care. They need something that they can tangibly see coming and going.
Yes. Give them something they can feel.
Now,
exactly.
Are there certain things in the budget that they should really concentrate on as, besides this putting aside for yourself first, what are the priorities they should really focus on, making sure those are the initial things that are covered?
Housing. That's the priority because you want to have a roof over your head. And as much as paying your creditors matter, because it does affect your credit score. When you are really up against it and you have to use your, as I've heard Tiffany the Budgetnista say, your ramen noodle budget, and I call it your beanie weenie budget. If you have to have your beanie weenie budget, then you can't worry about the credit card. You call them, you let them know that you can not afford to pay them or whatever you can afford to pay. But your priority for you and your family is to keep a roof over your head, to pay your car payment because you'll need to have transportation to get back and forth to work. Of course, to buy food, to buy medicine and utilities. So all of the other things come after that. And even as far as utilities, they have lifted the ban now. At one time there was I say lifted the ban. They had where the utility companies would not turn your services off if you did not pay. Well, they've changed that now, so you do have to pay. But they will still work with you. Now, you just can't say, I'm not going to pay and expect to still have your lights on. But you can call them and ask that they work with you and tell them how much that you can pay and when you will be able to pay. And they'll work with you. But, the credit cards, that comes last. And you may take a hit on your credit, but having a roof over your head is a priority.
And hopefully, it's a temporary situation. You don't expect to stay in dire straits forever. Even if you've got to get a different job or take on an extra job to pay it. But people don't do well with silence. And so you need to contact them and say, hey, I'm really struggling. I'd like to work out something. Even the IRS will work with you if you call and say, hey, I know I owe this. can I work something out with you because I can't afford this big payment right now. So can we, work on a certain amount for a certain period of time? But yeah, silence will get you in more trouble. So don't be afraid to call and say, there's a situation. I lost my job, but I expect to have another one, but I really need some, cut me some slack for a little bit. Because I think rather than have you just go bad on the debt, most people will work with you. Especially
True.
Right now, everybody knows it's we're having a temporary huge setback for everybody. So I think a lot of
everybody's having an issue, so it's not.
Yeah.
It's not an individual situation, and I totally agree with you about silence, because if you're silent to creditors, that equates to avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
So they think that you are trying to avoid paying the bill if you're silent. So just call, and do not promise to pay something that you cannot. If you know that bill requires you to pay, we'll just say $35, and you know that you don't have $35, don't agree to something that you cannot pay. If you can only pay $5, that's what you say. If you cannot pay anything, that's what you say. Just make sure that whatever you agree to, you adhere to. So yes,
If you
I'm agreeing with you.
They're less likely to send you to the collectors, which will be harassing you. If you could at least call the company and let them know, there's an issue, and as long as they know you're working with them, most of them will do that and not just cut you off and send it down the road.
Yes. And keep them abreast of what's going on. And if there's an issue or a change in your employment status, let them know that as well. You can provide them with a copy. If there's anything, personal on there that you don't want them to see, of course, you can black that out. But if your hours, if you have been cut, or if you're not working at all, let them know that. If you go back to work and you'll only be working a few hours, let them know that. So yes, again, silence equates to avoidance, and you don't want them to think that you're avoiding the bill. So yes, you're absolutely right.
What can couples do so that they know that they're on the same page as to what their financial goals will be? Like if they want to save for certain things or save for a house or whatever, how do they set that up so that they are actually moving towards that goal?
Communication. When you first meet someone, and I know it feels awkward, I say first meet, first think that you want to get to know this person, you're going to spend some time with this person, and you think this could potentially be your lifetime partner or your long-term partner. Once you realize that, these conversations need to start. Because as you said, money is one of the primary reasons, or the main reason is money and infidelity, the main reasons for divorce. And so if your goals are not in alignment with each other, then it's just easy for the relationship to end. And you don't want it to end after you've invested so much time and money. So initially, you need to discuss what your goals are. If you're interested in a new house, state that. And you can even go as far as to kind of look at some of the houses that both of you have, you like together. So if you know that both of you're interested in, a 3-bedroom, 2-car garage, or whatever the amenities are, if you look at houses, find out what those price ranges are, and then that will give you an idea of how much you need to save. Because you'll realize you have to have a down payment, so you'll want to save towards that. You can, speak with a lender to find out what, based on your credit, what your down payment is. If your goal is to buy a new car, then you have to do the same steps. You need to know how much the item the item's going to cost totally, how much the monthly payment is going to be for the item, and how much you'll be expected to put down, and how long, when do you expect to pursue this goal? Because if you have 5 years, if you plan on doing it in 5 years, then you have 60 months to plan. So whatever that amount that you decide you're going to save, divide that by 60, and you'll save that every month. If your goal is to have it done within 3 years, you have 36 months. So the time frame that you've allotted for this goal has to be realistic. And the only way that it can be realistic is if you have open and honest communication with your partner from the beginning.
Well, what options do people have? Like, if you're in this marriage, you have kids, this is a, horrific issue all the time, and it's just really, rather than just ditching the relationship, what options are available to a couple to be able to get some help, helping them get their finances under control since they've not been able to do it themselves?
They can contact a financial coach that will work with them on their goals, work with their mindsets to see what, if anything, is hindering the relationship, or if there's anything, I say hindering the relationship, or hindering their goals of prosperity. And as well as the financial coach will come up with a plan, and it will be an actionable plan that they can follow, and they will also have an accountability partner, because they need to work with someone so that they can get on track. If you just sit and, I always equate it to losing weight, I guess, because I need to lose some. But every time I have ever lost a significant amount of weight, it was when I had a plan. And it wasn't just a plan up here. It was a plan that I had written down. I weighed myself. I wrote down how much I wanted to lose. I indicated, wrote down what I was eating. It's the same principle. You need to have a plan, and a financial coach will help you and assist you and walk you through your plan so that you can achieve your goals.
Now, do you, as a coach, work with people about their emotional issues regarding the money? The behavioral problems?
Yes. And most financial coaches do, because ironically, now, of course, now we're in a different economic time because of the pandemic. And so many people just simply do not have the money to pay their bills. But generally speaking, the amount of money has not been an issue. It's not an issue. It's usually the way that the money is spent. And that's all determined by their mindset, by what their thoughts are, their money story, what their thoughts are around money. I mean, for example, I was speaking to someone, and they said that when they grew up, their mother and the siblings and the family would go shopping every Saturday. So as an adult, she went shopping every Saturday. Not that she needed anything, but it was a habit that was ingrained in her because that's what she saw. Well, if that is someone's story, then they would have to realize it and then rewrite the story. So yes, we do.
Okay. It helps to have somebody who doesn't have the emotional attachment to, the funds and everything, and the budget as well, that more common sense approach, because when it's yours, I think emotionally you feel there's more at stake, even if it's a subconscious thing. So it's easier to have somebody who's not really tied to the situation to help you see the big picture.
Exactly. And sometimes, as you said, someone that's not attached, sometimes people have more assets than they realize because they are so attached. And once I do a sheet, the net worth sheet, once their net worth is revealed to them, then they're surprised because they have not taken a true inventory of their finances. And then that alleviates, oftentimes it alleviates or eliminates the stress. So it does help.
I do estate planning, and that's one of the hardest things I have to get people to do is to write down what they have. They're very resistant to it for some reason, but you may think I don't have much, but then when you get to writing it down, I mean, real estate, money in the bank, retirement funds, bonds, and whatever, all that stuff really adds up quickly, and you really need to know what you have, and especially if now you're feeling a pinch, maybe there's something there that y'all can liquidate that'll help alleviate the burden until things get better. So, looking at that may seem scary, but people really are super resistant to that, and that really is a very helpful step to see it on paper. Whether it's there or it's not, you need to know what you're working with.
You need to know what and it is, because that's, as you were asking how I got into becoming a financial coach, it was because, like I said, when I lost my job, I thought, oh God, and really and truly, I started thinking, maybe I should start planting some food because I need to start gardening because I may not have any money to eat. And gardening is fine for somebody that likes to garden, but I was speaking of gardening for survival because I did not think that I would be able to until I did exactly what you're speaking of. And I realized, it's not as dire as I thought it was. So yes, it's a helpful tool. And if it turns out that you're not where you would like to be, then it also reveals where you are so that you can design a new path for yourself.
Well, how do you get your kids and everybody on board with this budget? Is it necessary to sit the kids down and tell them this is our new plan, or how do you approach that?
I do think that kids need to be aware of what's going on. I believe that you should be honest with them without casting a bad light. So, you shouldn't always say, well, we're broke, because broke is a state of mind. So I think you should watch the terminology that you use, but also being realistic, let them know, I'm no longer working. My income has decreased. And so we're going to have to make some changes. And I need you to help me out here. And just sit down with them. And no, you don't have to divulge your entire budget with them. But you can tell them, so mommy's decided that I'm going to, depending on the age, of course, as a teenager, you just might want to, you wouldn't say mommy, but then again, you might, because my daughter's older and she still calls me mommy. But anyway, decided that I am going to, cut down on the cable. I'll give you an example when I mention my daughter. When I lost my job, I would always plan on where I was going, the days of the week that I was going, because if my house is point A and I needed to go to point C, I wanted to leave here and go A, B, C. I didn't want to go way to C and then have to drive out, all around. I wanted that my driving path, to be a straight path. And the reason only is because of gas. I mean, gas still costs. So some days I would say, oh no, I'm not going anywhere today. I did everything that I needed to do yesterday. So today I'm conserving. So that would help her realize I just can't be driving all around, just taking the scenic route. And so yes, they need to tell the everyone they need to sit down and decide, okay, so what are you going to do? So are you at one time you ate lunch at school 5 days a week. So now, you're going to need to only eat lunch 3 days a week or whatever it is, because there has to be an adjustment. And the sooner you make the adjustment, the less stressful it will be.
Well, what are some ways that we can start teaching our kids about the value of money?
Teach them early. Teach them early. Even with coins. If you teach them, for example, if they get an allowance, because they need to realize that they have to work for their money, because you work for your money. So the allowance just should not be free. Now it can be tied to an accomplishment, because if they get all A's, then of course they're going to be rewarded. But that also means that they worked hard, because the A didn't just miraculously appear. So they need to realize that when they receive money, it's because they've earned it. And they can have a job, and if their chores, and if they need extra money, you can say, I will pay you blah 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 if you do something extra. And that doesn't mean every time they do something they get paid, nor does it mean that they don't take responsibility for the household, because they live there as well. But they do need to know that they earn the money, and then once they get it, how much it costs for them to do something. If they are going to the movies once the pandemic is over, then how much does that cost? Because that will come out of the money that they've earned. That helps them realize. No, I remember when my daughter was young, we were talking about going somewhere, and she was really interested in going. And then I said, okay, so that's going to be $3 from your allowance. Oh, she said, oh, I want to go, but I don't want it that bad. So,
It's a good thing to learn. Is it worth it to you?
Yes. Do you want it that bad? She wanted it when I was paying for it, but when she was paying for it, she didn't want it that bad. So yes.
Now, what's a good process to teach them that you need to, save up for things, or, just have a rainy day fund? How do we get them to understand that?
Well, money, there are 4 things that you do with it. You're going to spend it, save, invest, and donate. So they need to realize that every time that they get some money, they need to decide on where it's going. Because that's a budget. And it doesn't matter, even as adults, when you get some money, if you get your tax refund or you get a bonus at work, it's the same with your kids. If they get money for Christmas, the tooth fairy money, they still need to decide how much of that they're going to save. Because there could come a rainy day, or maybe not a rainy day. Maybe their friends will be doing something that they really, really want to do, and then they have to pay for it. So if they have that money, and once you let them know and you provide them with some scenarios, then it helps. Because they really need to know, so that they don't feel entitled. They're not entitled. Nobody's just giving away free money out here. They're not entitled to get anything.
And I know, because I do this for my mother, the little check register books.
Yes.
People don't use checks so much anymore, but your bank will usually give you some of those for free. Teach them how to keep track of their money in those. They're generally free at your own bank, but that'll help them learn.
They do. In fact, I had one sitting here. I don't see it right now. Right now, all I see is the free. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, the free money. $100 bills. Yeah, and it's tips for saving. Um, but you're absolutely right. They will give they can get free register, and you can purchase. I believe it's on Amazon. Well, everything's on Amazon, so it's probably on Amazon. But you can purchase the free checks and the free check stubs. Not check stub, check register, so that they can get in the habit of writing out checks, doing things the old school way, and then eventually they can, do it the easy way. It's the same principle as when you're adding. At first, you need to do it with a pen and paper. Then once you really learn, you grab the calculator. So yes, I think that's a good idea.
Well, it helps you see where the money's going. Like you said, unless they're feeling it come in and out of their hand, it doesn't register up here. So important to write it down. Plus, it helps them with their math skills.
What did you say?
It helps them with their math skills also. So.
Yes, it does. And I mean, I forget, you forget. And then you get that Visa bill and realize, oh, God, I bought that. But if you pay for it, you don't forget. You don't like to see that money leave the wallet. So that's why the envelope system works, where you have an envelope for each of the expenses. And there's various ways to do it. You may not want an envelope for, the rent or the mortgage and the car payment, maybe not the major ones, but an envelope at least for all of the entertainment. So once that money's gone, it's gone. Yep, once it's gone, it's gone.
It's not fun going to buy groceries and find out that, oops, somebody spent $100 on entertainment and we can't buy what we need. And
yeah,
draft charges, you can waste an incredible amount of money on those. So you have to learn to keep track.
You have to learn to keep track. It requires a certain amount of discipline. But once you've been burned, it helps. Puts the discipline in place.
Are there any other things that you can give us advice on that would help us get started on this journey?
I do have when you're doing a budget, you can do it with old-fashioned way, pen and paper. I personally like a pen and paper, or the upgraded old-fashioned way would be a Excel spreadsheet. And I have one that you can download. You have to download it before you use it. It's at bit.ly/download budget. bit.ly/download budget. It's an Excel spreadsheet. And when you're doing your budget, you can budget monthly or bi-weekly, depending on how you're paid. And you do want to include all of your finances, including items that are, annually or semi-annually. Because if you're paying something, I'll just say for insurance, for example, and you pay that just once a year, then you still need to account for it. So just divide the amount that you pay by 12 and save that every month. And you can also use, like I said, paper and pen, a spreadsheet, and then there's several apps like Mint, M-I-N-T, or YNAB, You Need a Budget. That YNAB stands for You Need a Budget. Every dollar. So there are various ways to budget. You just have to get started. Just get started. And once you get started, it's so much easier.
Well, less stressful, that's for sure.
Yes, yes.
I appreciate you being here today and speaking with us. I know you gave a lot of good tips to the audience. Is there anything that you'd like to share with them, that resources or anything?
Yes, feel free to follow me. I am online. Coach Roz, R-O-S, Lash, L-A-S-H, everywhere. Coach Roz Lash. My website is roslynlash.com, roslynlash.com. And you can feel free to join my Facebook group, Elevation and Financial Prosperity. However, I did a link so that it would be easier for people to find. And the link is the money group, jointhemoneygroup.com. That's what it is. Just did it this morning because it makes it so much easier because it's harder for people to remember the name of the group. Jointhemoneygroup.com.
I understand Microsoft made me use my password the other day, and I still can't remember it. It takes a while to get those in there. Well,
yes, it does.
I encourage the audience to go to your website and your Facebook group. There's a lot more information there as well. And also, if you have questions for Roslyn or you would like to inquire about working with her, go there and you can contact her there. And I thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I certainly thank you. I've enjoyed myself.